Good morning, everyone. My name's Corinne. We're here in the studio today with Miss Elizabeth Knox Oates, here to discuss her book, More Than Just Interesting. How are you doing today, Elizabeth?
Good morning, Corinne. Nice to see you. Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you as well. Can you tell us what about More Than Just Interesting is more than just interesting?
Absolutely. So this is a book that it's been a passion project for me. So I'm in the field of consumer insights, and I've spent 20 years on the corporate side of that world. And within consumer insights, it's really about understanding the consumer's needs, wants, behaviors, and beliefs, and helping businesses make choices that are right for their customers. So, for example, I've worked in the consumer packaged goods space at General Mills and helping them understand things like what's the next best flavor of cereal to launch, or what new innovative products could we bring to the market. I've also worked in the retail space, and consumer insights there is about helping understand what's the right experience in a store for consumers. What do they love about your store? What products do they want in your store? What are the things that are right and things that could be changed to make an experience better? And so within that, consumer insights is really about, like I said, helping businesses make choices. And sometimes they're choices that consumers see. What's the next best advertisement to put up, or commercial, or promotion? And sometimes there are things that consumers don't see. How do we make the operations be the right thing for customers and guests in the store? So that is the sort of the background and where I've been. But what I found is, why did you say more than just interesting, Elizabeth, in the title of your book? Well, a lot of what I do is about data. And understanding, data being both qualitative, meaning how someone's feeling, as well as quantitative. What did they tell you in a survey or an experience? And it's really easy when you have a lot of data to get caught up in making charts and graphs and reports. And what I found is that it's more than that. It's about if you can have this moment where you're like, oh, that's interesting. But really, we have to find something to do with that data. It's really about having an impact. And so more than just interesting is about using data to have an impact in a way that's right for a customer.
Beautiful. So how does that look like when you bridge that gap?
Yeah, great question. So the whole background here for me is that I was in this world of insights, and I was giving a presentation that I thought was pretty awesome. It was really fun. I loved speaking and talking and sharing what I know. And in this meeting space, one of my partners stopped me on the way out of the meeting room and said, "Elizabeth, that was interesting." And Corinne, to me, I was like, oh, that was my moment. And I realized that I didn't want to be just interesting. I wanted to help my business make a choice that was right for our guests so that we could succeed in the marketplace. And so for me, that was this pivot moment of I have to show up differently, and I have to show up in a new way, and I have to help my partners push our business forward. And so that was all right, I am no longer going to be interesting. I am going to be more than interesting, and I'm going to have an impact and help this business succeed.
Sure. So in consumer insights, when you have all this data, what do you think is typically the disconnect for people in the consumer insights industry to where they aren't necessarily applying maybe the qualitative aspects?
Right. In insights, my job is to ask questions. So answering questions is a little tricky for me. No, I'm kidding. But really, we ask a lot of questions. We ask, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? What do you want? What do you need? Did you like it? Did you not? And so it's really easy to keep asking more and more questions. And our job then, and the change that we have to make, is to go, okay, we have the answer, or we have enough of an answer that we can start taking action on those answers, because we can kind of fall into this circle of, what if I know this one more thing? Or if I ask this one next thing, what else will I learn? And at some point you have to take action. So it's moving from interesting to impactful by sparking, and I sometimes say being a springboard for action.
I love that, springboard for action. Can you tell the viewers anything about previous projects that you've worked on where you initiated that springboard action?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I will tell you about, sometimes I like to talk about failures because I learned so much when we fail. But I was thinking about, when there was a failure that I've had in my career, and I was working on the Progresso soup business about 10 years ago.
Yum.
And we were thinking about launching a frozen soup, right? And the team was really excited because it was like, okay, we always have canned soup, right? And it's where you put it in the cupboard, and it's really easy and it's awesome. But the food scientists had developed this incredible frozen soup, okay? And it was like frozen vegetables and frozen broth chips that you put in a pot and you melt it down. And wow, Corinne, it was delicious. And we did consumer testing, and they were, consumers were saying, this is great. We love the flavor.
Okay.
And so we said, all right, well, let's put it in a store. And so we packaged it up in these 2 really big bags and put it in Sam's Club. And I was standing in the freezer aisle all day, which is, by the way, really cold.
So you're actually on the ground
on
when
the
you're
ground,
taking
yes,
this
yes.
data. Okay.
And I'm watching consumers shop in the store. And I see them, pushing the carts by and look and pause and hesitate and then keep walking. And I was like,
oh, interesting.
what? And the next person comes by, actually opens up the freezer door, shuts the door, and keeps walking.
Okay.
I'm like, I know this is really good soup. I've tried it, and we've done all of these tests to say that people like the flavor. Person comes by, opens it up, actually picks it up, and then puts it back. Okay. And I was like, oh no, what is going on? So then we start asking questions, right? Because that's my job in getting insights. And so I start asking, well, why did you put that back? What did you not like about it? And the answers that I heard made so much sense. So I was like, why didn't I ask this before, right? And I heard things like, well, frozen soup is awesome, but it takes a lot of space in my freezer. And so if I'm going to get a frozen soup, I'm going to get something that I can't make at home. We had put chicken noodle as our flavor. Or I'm going to get something that the stuff in the can is good enough, right? So if you're going to give me something frozen, make it something really special that where the can isn't good enough or I can't make it at home. And by the way, 2 big bags, like that's a heck of a lot of soup. So what I found out was by asking questions and understanding what consumers were thinking, I had the wrong flavor in the wrong size, and then it shouldn't have been in club stores. And so we learned that we had to adjust. And actually, this product was not the right product for the marketplace. And the impact for the business in this case was not launching and saving the business a heck of a lot of money by not creating a product and putting it out in stores that nobody wanted.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's valuable information for sure.
Absolutely.
So do you think you have principles that you discuss in your book that could be applied across industries?
Absolutely. So if you're in the role of consumer insights, or even in any business role that you're in and you're working with consumers or building something for consumers, there's a lot of transferable skills and pull-through things that you can take with you. And the first and foremost is if you're going to ask consumers questions, know what you're trying to do. Right? So I sometimes say we don't want to boil the ocean.
Okay.
Like that's a heck of a thing to do.
Yeah. It sounds very time consuming.
Exactly. So we want to know exactly what questions to ask and what kinds of things that we're going to do because of it, because then we can be very pointed in thinking about how we might go forward and what we'll do with the answers that we get back from our research. So that's the same no matter if you're selling shoes or soup or cars or retail experiences.
Could you just walk me through that process a little bit? Because I think there's lots of small business owners, large business owners in the community watching today that might not know how to get from point A to point B just by asking the right questions or determining what their end result should be other than I want it to sell, right?
Right. Yeah, so determining what success looks like for you is the first and foremost thing to do.
So we're starting from the back end.
Exactly. It feels like putting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
If you will, on that analogy. It can feel that way, but knowing what you're trying to do and what success looks like, that's step 1.
Okay.
Step 2 is saying to yourself, what's the difference, or what's that thing that's holding me back from taking the action to get there? Is there something that I don't know that if I knew that one thing, I could then be confident in taking the action that I want to take?
Okay.
That's figuring out your knowledge gap, right? And then step 3 is going ahead and filling that knowledge gap. And you can use exercises like if this, then that to help you through the process. So if I learn that customers like the this flavor more than that flavor, then I know which flavor to launch, right?
Okay.
So it's less about which one is their favorite. Tying it to that business action will make certain that you're getting yourself to that success point that you set out in the beginning to achieve.
Okay. Are there specific questions that you need to ask yourself in order to know how much you need to compartmentalize or splice the data in terms of like flavor, texture, size? I guess maybe abstracting it a little bit from a consumer product, since you're now an author.
Yeah.
How would you apply that model to selling your book, for example?
Yes. So that's a great one, because I know I love to sell this book, and thinking about, who is my audience, right? Who is the person or the groups that I know will be interested in this content and find it valuable, right? Because some folks might find it interesting, but the folks who are going to buy it are the ones that are going to go, I know what to do with that. So for me, step 1 is thinking about my audience. Who are those groups of people, like I said, that could really leverage the information that I've got, who would find it not just interesting, but would find it impactful and be able to utilize it. So start with those people.
Okay.
And then what's holding them back from picking up this book? Is it that they don't know about it? Likely.
Fair.
It could be that. Or is it that there's something that they already have? There's a competitor of some sort. There's a class that they could take, or they're getting internal training at their job, those kinds of things. And understanding what their barriers are to purchasing my book would be the second thing. So who are they, and what's keeping them from taking the action that I want to do? So
then, to take it a step further, then how do you address barriers?
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so then you would design research, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay, walk me through that a little bit.
So
this is very interesting.
So understanding what the barriers are and how to overcome them in whatever business that you're in is really kind of the heart of what the insights field is all about, right? And so you can do that in a number of ways. You can ask people, like I was in the grocery store asking, what's the barrier to putting this in your cart?
Seems so simple, right?
Well, it's one of those things that, like, once you've done it once, you kind of the light goes on and it turns more for you too. But who's your audience? Ask those folks, what's keeping you from this, and why? Yeah. That why is the really important part. So they might say, well, I've got a solution. Why is that solution? I have a class I can take, so I don't need your book. Yeah. Why is that class something that you could really learn from? What are you getting there? Are you still missing anything? Yeah. What would make you think about this book that would be different than that class? Is it that you can take it with you? Is it that you can keep it forever? Is it that you can write in it? Mm-hmm. Is it that it's less expensive than a class? Is it that it's on your own time? Mm-hmm. All of those things. Yeah. And if you talk with folks about understanding their barriers, what they are, and how you might overcome them, like why those are the barriers, those give you the action steps for your business.
Nice. Do you run into the barrier of like preconceived notions or lack of information?
All the time.
And so that seems like a really difficult one to address.
Yes.
How would you address that or move forward from that point?
Yeah. So I've worked in a lot of different industries, and the 3 times in my career I've done this study. It's always about why are our customers lapsing? Oh. Lapsing being like someone who used to shop with us or used to buy our product and no longer do. Okay. All 3 studies, whether it was in apparel, in retail, or in food, the answer was always the same.
Which was?
Customers didn't know they were lapsing. They weren't purposefully walking away. Okay, there's a few who had a bad experience here or there, but for the most part, customers weren't saying, I'm done with you, food product, or I'm done with you, retailer. It was more like something else caught their eye. Some other solution or some other product had kind of pulled their attention away from me. Mm-hmm. And so it was really a light bulb moment in the sense of like, I've lost being top of mind. Okay. And that was the thing that was like, how do you come to the top of someone's mind? Because if you're thinking about cereal, for example,
sure,
you could go to the grocery store and have hundreds of options.
Yeah.
How do you make sure you're the one that's on the list? Or if you're a book, you can go online or to the bookstore. There's a million options, right?
Sure.
How do I get to the top of someone's mind? Like, what's that trigger that's going to go, oh, I need to have this brand of shoes or this project, or I'm going to go to that retailer for this.
So it's largely not even a conscious decision when they're lapsing.
Yes.
It's mostly a conscious decision when they choose to purchase.
Correct.
And that's it. When their attention is captured.
Correct. Right. And so how do you know what your brand or your product or your service does? And where is that moment that someone's making a choice? And how do you make sure that you're top of mind in that moment?
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, you seem very excited about your work and very passionate about this industry and its impact. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what your work means to you?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So, like I said, I've been in the industry for a little over 20 years, and I found that what I love about it is that it's really fun. I get to be the voice of the customer. So when I go to work, no matter what industry I'm working with, I don't show up as Elizabeth. I show up as the customer. And when customers are really passionate about the things that they're doing or buying or using, it makes my job really fun. So first and foremost, finding something that's a lot of fun makes me do my best work.
Okay.
So
sure.
In this space, I've been doing my best work because I've been having fun with it, but also because I'm having an impact. And I can see tangible business success happen when businesses are making choices with their customers in mind. And so it's fun to be the voice of the customer. It's also a lot of fun to see a business succeed and have someone else that you're working with and their passions come to life. So as I've progressed in my career, what I found is that there are a lot of folks like me who find this space really fun, but there isn't a whole lot of formal training on how to do it.
Okay.
And so when I was working with teams in retail over the last 10 years, what I found was there is a little bit of training in like methodology. You can take a class on how to do qualitative research, or you can take a class in data analysis, but there is no class on how to apply it to a business, large or small or any category. And so I started building these core skills. Like, what are the core things that you have to really work on and develop if you want to succeed in this space?
And can you talk a little bit about what those are?
Sure. So I have 9 core skills, and only 2 of them are about doing the work. The other 7 are all about understanding what's happening around you and how to apply and move from interesting to impactful.
Okay.
So for example, insights really don't work in a vacuum, right? So if I'm working in apparel, there's a team around me who are either designing the products or putting it in the store or selling it in the store. And so I have to understand, what choices are they making, my partners? Mm-hmm. How are they thinking? What are their barriers to taking action? And so understanding that context that your partners are in is really important. Also, the business context, right? So at what point do you have to make a choice as a retailer, right? And so a funny story that I think about, when I got into retail about 10 years ago, we were working on a holiday promotion, and the team was really frazzled and busy as we were heading into that last part of the year, into the holiday season. And I paused and I thought, well, gosh, doesn't December 25th happen on December 25th every year? Like, why are we surprised? So part of understanding how to be impactful is when to be impactful as well. When is the choice going to be made?
Yeah.
So if we're waiting until the day before a choice has to be made, the teams are going to be really rushed. But if you know those choices for December are actually made in July, like we have to decide what products we're going to buy to have ready for sale in December in July, I know that I have to show up with my insights in July.
Sure.
So there's all sorts of pieces about, yes, you have to know how to ask questions and how to analyze data, but knowing how the business is going to use that, how do you communicate the insights is really important as well. So there's business and contextual understanding, there's communication, both verbal and written, and then there's partnership development as well, all within those 9 core skills.
Okay. And inevitably a lot of research, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, I have 2 questions, and
Sure.
you can answer them in whatever order you like. Can you talk a little bit about, maybe I'll just pick the one. Do you ever run into situations where you do need to switch on a dime because of maybe something buzzing culturally or
Yes.
socially or even politically,
Yes.
and then that impacts your next steps in consumer insights?
Absolutely. This, in the pandemic is an example. Like,
Sure.
that changes everything.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And being the voice of the customer at a time when customer behavior was changing and we didn't know which direction it was going to go was both the most exciting and the most terrifying point of my career. Because I don't have a crystal ball. I couldn't predict the future, right? So what I did in that case, and what I continue to do as things change socially and politically, is I take a look at, for my consumers, what is no longer true, what is still true, and what is now true. And at any moment, you can use that framework to say, okay, no longer true, those are the things that I don't have to worry about anymore. Okay? And I can say, I can put down all of my concerns about those things or my focus on those things because I have other things to worry about. What's still true, those are those continual, always on insights that you have that no matter what's happening in the world around them, humans are making these choices.
For example?
Right. So, for example, I need to feed my family.
Okay.
Right?
And chicken soup is popular.
And chicken, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I need to feed my family, and there's not been a money tree planted out back, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that's a continual, still true insight. Now, they might be, as you think about that, right? So that's always on, and I know that's going to be a need that I need to serve. Now, if you look into that what's now true bucket, then you can start to say, how do I serve that need in a new way? So, for example, in the pandemic, a lot of stores were closed, right? And we were talking about delivery and pickup and all of these other new kinds of options. Consumers didn't really want to try a lot of those options before the pandemic. They're like, no, I want to go pick out my own fruit, right? Yeah. But this openness happened because of a contextual situation. So they still had this need to feed their family on the same budget, right?
Yeah.
But we're open to new ways of getting those items. And so retailers started developing new programs to help and provide ways to access the food in new ways. So that's a no longer true, still true, now true situation that was real and true. But you can apply that in all different contexts, right? Whether it's a retailer or whatever you're selling, whatever your business is, you can look through that lens, and it'll help you say, how do I prioritize? Because that's the biggest, I think, part of business is you got to make a choice, but there's 1,000 choices you could make. Which ones are the right ones? And if you prioritize based on no longer true, set those ones down. Still true, keep those ones here. Now true, gives you some new focus points.
Definitely sounds like the business keeps you on your toes.
It does. It does.
So, can you talk about your journey in becoming an author a little bit and how that's changed your life and where you'd like your book to go?
Absolutely. So I mentioned that the spark for my book came from a meeting where someone told me I was interesting. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to show up differently. Well, from there, I started thinking about how might I come to work in a different way? How might I work with my partners in a different way? And started writing it down. And then helping my team also think about how might they learn and develop in new ways, and writing that down. And then, I was giving a presentation to the industry called Never Be Interesting.
Oh.
Corinne's people actually showed up, which was fun. But actually, the content was well received because I wasn't the only one out there who didn't want to be just interesting.
Right.
So this presentation led me to think like, okay, there's something here.
Yeah, take me seriously.
Right?
Yeah.
And people like this idea that content was great. And so actually, I was on an airplane, And sometimes on an airplane, there's not a whole lot to do.
Sure.
And this is in January 2020, so that we didn't have like the screen in the back of the seat or anything, but it was like, okay, I can either sit here or I can do something. And I decided I was going to do something. And I knew I wanted to write a book. And so on this trip on the airplane, I sat down on my little tray table and outlined the book. And when the plane landed, the next day I wrote the first chapter.
Oh, lovely.
And so I was like, okay, I've got to start. And I had a friend who was like, you can do this. I'm like, can I really?
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, Elizabeth, you can do this. And I was like, okay.
Sometimes it just takes one person in your corner, right?
Totally. And she was my springboard. So I liked being a springboard. She was mine. And so I kept going and I started writing. Then, of course, that was January of 2020. We all know what happened shortly after that. So my writing had to go on pause for a little bit. I had two
busy.
Yes, I had 2 kids at home trying to get through this whole new world while working. And so I paused, but I said, this dream was still mine, and I want to do something. Like, I have to be doing something. What goal could I set for myself?
There you go, that end goal, right?
Exactly. And so the goal I set for myself was to write 1 paragraph a week, which doesn't seem like very much, but at the time was a pretty lofty goal. And some weeks I even achieved it. But 4 years later, after 1 paragraph a week, I found myself with a full manuscript. And so I contacted a publisher who I'd contacted a few years prior, and they said, how long will this take you? And I was like, oh, forever, like 12 months. And then I call them back in 4 years. Here we are. But at that point, we all aligned and agreed. And so they thought there was something to it as well. And it was like my passion project that I was writing on the side here and there. Actually, I was writing it at my daughter's ballet lessons. So every Saturday, she had a 45-minute ballet lesson, and I could just sit outside and no one needed me. So I would write 1 paragraph, and that's beautiful. There's where it all is.
Glad to have you on the show. We got to take a moment to wrap up. This is Elizabeth Knox Oates, everybody, for More Than Just Interesting. How can listeners find your book and more information about you?
Yes, so you can follow me on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Knox Oates, and my book is also on Amazon, so you can find it there. It's called More Than Just Interesting, and would love to have you follow and learn more with me.
Thanks so much. Have a good day, everybody.
Feeling bullied by your bank?
Hey, I got a random overdraft fee.
You've reached our main menu. If you're disputing an overdraft fee, please press 4. Or just hang up and call back tomorrow.
Are you pretending to be a robot?
Goodbye.
Stop banking the same way, expecting different results, and start banking where you matter. Wintrust. Different approach, better results.
YEP gives me a lot of hope for the future, not just here locally, but as those kids go out into the world and they share their perspectives and their passions, it's going to be infectious. It's going to spread. So they're just an amazing organization that sets their partners and this community up